32 minutes, 21 seconds. 5-second tone followed by a 1-second pause.
You are listening to Space Boy Universe.
Okay, gang, let's go.
From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Space Boy Universe, featuring Space Boy and the lovely Solana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence.
Greetings and salutations, I'm Space Boy.
I'm Solana.
And this is Space Boy Universe. You can follow the universe at the SBU Universe. Let me just do this over again. As always, you can follow us on the Twitterverse, and that's at the SB Universe. No matter how many times we rehearse this, I still get it wrong. Follow the host, that's Solana, that's at Solana, and follow me at Space Boy Music. Follow the network that brings you all this fine content, and that's at the SBU. I swear to God, I'm just going to slap myself silly.
You want me to do it, babe?
No, I got it. The whole reason I started doing it is because you didn't want to do it. And we eliminated all this stuff so that you could just say, hey, I'm Solana. So let me say this again. You can follow the universe at the SB Universe. That's on Twitter, that is. And you can also follow the network. That's the SBU Network. I got it right that time. Anyway, so, hey.
What?
I'll tell you what. Remember to hashtag your tweets tonight with hashtag SB Universe and hashtag Space Cadets. You know, speaking of Space Cadets, Solana, they are a bunch of motley crew of people in there, and it's always a pleasure to talk to them. And if you want to be a part of the cool kids, all you have to do is go to spaceboyuniverse.com and click on the dancing chat bubble on the player, and that'll get you in with all them hot, cool, in between, left and right, fun, cool kids. So go there. In addition to Twitter, you know, you can find the universe on Facebook, Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, and many more places. You know, Solana, speaking of YouTube, maybe there will be one day when we'll put more content down there, but until then, there's still a lot of fabulous new content that's there. You can find the SBU in the archive of shows and the video content of SB Music, SBU video interviews, 2-Bit Gamers, and so much more. It's so much fun, so go subscribe. Hey, you know what? I always find myself missing a show or two, even though I'm behind the mic. But that's no problem because, you know, I can always take the SBU on the go with me and go to Spreaker and SoundCloud and iTunes because, man, we love to broadcast. But, you know, I forgot to tell you, it is September 9th, 2017. And tonight is a good show because it's the shadow government. And, you know,
okay.
So I thought I'd change it up a little bit. So, anyway, with all that said, how are you, Solana?
Confused?
Don't be confused, because, you know...
Is this like turning into morning radio?
Ha-ha! It's 12:35 in the morning, and you're listening to the Zoo Crew.
Stop, please.
All right, well, you go next.
Okay, well... We're still feeling the effects of Harvey. I know Irma is the big thing now, and I kind of resent the fact that Florida has to one-up Texas. You know, we couldn't even, bask in our glory of surviving, and then y'all got to, just have your entire state get obliterated. But, so the weird phenomenon is happening with Irma things we didn't experience because they are surrounded by water on three sides, the state of Florida. Strange phenomenon. Hurricane Irma is literally sucking the water away from the shoreline. So I guess it's like accumulating it into its vortex. And I don't know if that means a tsunami is about to happen or if it's going to just slowly come back. But what I'm reading about it is some meteorologists say these are the things you learn in textbooks, but you may never see this phenomenon in person. And it's a theoretical thing, but the chances of seeing it in real life are slim to none. But it can happen, and it takes a hurricane strong enough to change the shape of an ocean. So people have been taking photos and posting it on social media. So it's so strong, the Hurricane Irma, and the pressure is so low, it's pulling the water from the surroundings into the core of the storm. So they're seeing this on Long Island in the Bahamas, southeast to northwest on Saturday on the northwest side of the island. And they're experiencing the effects of Hurricane Bulge in the center of the storm where the pressure is very low. Water's drawn up into it. So the low pressure is like a sucking mechanism, like a vacuum. It sucks the air up into the middle. And when it's really low, it can change the shape of the surface of the ocean. And the storm draws water toward its center. It gets pulled away from the land surroundings, the shore. Mm-hmm. So it's a legit phenomenon, but it is pretty freaky.
Yeah, the first reaction I thought was a tsunami, but I realized that the hurricane is sucking up the water and just it's leaving that low pressure, and so the water goes into the hurricane and it reciprocates by spitting it all back out in form of precipitation. So, yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah, I've never heard of that, but that must be pretty freaky to see. Now, I thought I've seen some pretty strange things around here. We're still experiencing some issues because of some standing water that could not drain. So they're having to pump it out into the bayou, but they had to wait for the bayou to go down. So that took a week for the bayou to come down to a level where they could add more to it and pump it directly from Beltway 8 down into Buffalo Bayou. I guess it's Buffalo Bayou. Mm-hmm. Buffalo Bayou goes a long way through Houston.
Yeah, it goes all the way to the bay. That's where all the water dumps out into.
I had no idea it started so far back, So we're surrounded by little creeks, bayous, and lakes.
Basically, they say Houston's basically like a swamp.
It is.
And
it is the swamp.
Yeah, so, that's why it gets so waterlogged the way it does. But, if it hadn't been for the reservoirs, it would have been a lot worse.
And that's what they had to do. They had to control release of our two big reservoirs into areas that were already flooded from Harvey, which caused a bit of a brouhaha here. In fact, I think some people are going to try to sue.
Yeah, because they were flooded out, and they weren't told. Like, for example, when they bought their houses, this was not going to flood or blah, blah, blah. And so they've decided to come together as a community and I guess go after.
I thought they always disclosed when you're in a flood zone. We always find out.
Yeah.
When we looking for houses, we check that.
Well, yeah, they're supposed to tell you a lot of things, but I don't know. I guess they were just not expecting, and how I feel for them. I feel for everyone in Houston and all in Texas, and now I'm going to feel for Florida because when you lose your life like that. I mean, when I say life, your material effects.
Nothing but the clothes on your back.
Yeah.
And your kids and your pets.
That's got to be rough. I mean, everything you've built over. I can't imagine losing all the stuff that we've recently built for the studio alone. Losing all this.
It could have been a thing. Mm-hmm. It could have been a thing.
Very true.
I have heard, I don't know if this is true, but if it is true, it sounds legit that people here who have gone through what you just said and worse are experiencing PTSD. Mm-hmm. And there might even be such a thing as survivor's guilt. People like you and me that nothing happened yet, like one street behind him there was tragedy, but you're the next street over, nothing happened. That could be a thing too. So I'm not sure. Saying hi to Bob there, and Kay beat me into the chat room as he always tries to do. So
Yeah, basically, Kay is a little riled up because he's looking for episode 1. I guess when he wasn't he on episode 1, or is that the dirty laundry? I got to do laundry.
That was a pre-recorded. That was our pilot, and I told him I will look into finding out where that is and how to get it to him.
Okay.
Apologize for the cat. The cat literally broke into the studio through the door.
Yeah, you'll probably hear some cat action until
But,
the bottom of the hour.
It's just us. We don't have a guest. Although I told her she wasn't professional, she refuses to listen. And she's just chilling.
So anyway, speaking of the weather and how it all ties into most recently,
And we'll talk more about it later, too.
I get home, or I'm on my way home Friday, and basically what happens is Sir Lana calls me and says the power's out, and I immediately like, holy crap.
You were already on the phone with me.
And I was like, I cannot, because you were just coming home from the store. And so basically she tells me that the power line is down in the back of the house. One of the branches fell, and
well, the neighbor came over to me saying, "Hey, we heard a pop. We saw a puff of smoke in your backyard, and you've got a tree branch down." So I'm guessing they just walked right into the backyard. Of course, I think that affected the houses on both sides and then behind.
Yeah, because the Australian, as we affectionately call him, has a backup generator and all that good stuff. And
well, he is Australian. That's what we call him, the Australian.
But yeah, I could tell that the power was out in his house because his backup generator was on. And so that's how I could tell he was affected as well. And so basically, it was another night that Sir Lana just said, I'm going to sleep in the bed. I just could not bring myself to sleep in the house with no circulating air.
I totally, most times, I get what you're going through. When we had the hurricane afterwards, it was kind of sweaty, humid, and kind of stuffy. It just wasn't as bad.
I need air.
It wasn't as bad.
Circulating air. Even if it was a fan,
right?
I would still need a fan.
It was, if you stayed perfectly still and you didn't cover up, it was okay. You could fall asleep.
The whole reason, Uncle Joe's there.
Uncle Joe.
We do have a generator. That Space Boy, as a dummy, forgot to drain the gas out of it, and it sat there for, I guess, a year or so. And so it doesn't start, and it needs to be drained and all that stuff. I feel very stupid when it comes to that because usually I'm better than It's
kind of heavy to bring over, Uncle Joe.
So, but yeah, generator, we need to get it right. And I had planned on getting it, taken care of. And then, of course, the lights went out. But anyway, so back to what happened was Sir Lana went to sleep in the house.
I texted you. You were already asleep in the car, and I said, "Look, I texted you. I'm going in the house. Bye."
I was tired.
I know. And that's why I didn't bother you.
And I passed out. We were sitting in your car, and then
which
I guess about
kept running.
1 o'clock or so, I got up.
Yeah, that's when I got up. It was about 12:30. Yeah.
Because I needed a restroom break, and then I went back out and I said I need to get vertical. So the only thing that was available to do that was the old van. So I got in the van and laid down, and it was wonderful. But a little hard on my back.
Yeah.
My back isn't what it used to be.
We need to build something to put in there for these circumstances that's comfortable. Because it's doable. It's just not, we need something, we just need something more comfortable.
It's doable, but it's not comfortable. But yeah, I slept there, and apparently I got a text message this morning about 7:30 that the power was fixed, and I
woke up and there was light. I said, I don't know when that happened.
First off, I called her to see if the power was on, and she said
was out cold.
She didn't even answer, but I knew.
Out cold.
But I knew that I saw Wi-Fi on my phone that it was picking up
that's how
our
you know.
Wi-Fi. So it was like, okay, power's on, and I said, okay, I just want to sleep a little bit longer.
I slept all the way until Auntie Eva called.
So anyway, I got up, and Sir Lana wouldn't get up, so I went and had some breakfast at McDonald's and came home and did some other things, worked on stuff I hadn't worked on, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. The power came back on. There's a big ass branch in the backyard. And it needs
it is
to be
pretty much half a tree, basically.
and surprisingly, there's a part of the branch that's sitting on the cable wire that goes from the house. It goes down to the ground, and then it goes back up to the cable box. So
the phone line's completely on the ground, but we haven't had landline since 2008, so who cares?
Yeah, we haven't used a landline in quite some time. When we had a landline, we only took it because Comcast was
Had that
like
stupid bundle
thing,
now-
and all they called us was, "Hey, would you like a timeshare in Florida?"
No,
or
it was just it's nothing but garbage
junk
calls.
mail.
Now, was that the situation in the backyard when it did this? Was that a dangerous situation?
Well, of course, you don't want to go back there, and they tell you to stay away from the wires.
I was going to go sit on the tree.
Oh,
branch.
Well, now that it's fixed,
They were telling, I think they said don't go back there. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't have to tell me twice. We don't go back there ever for any reason.
It's been a long time. I haven't barbecued in a long time.
We don't go. We're not outdoor people. We don't go outside.
I mean, there was a time I enjoyed barbecuing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I did it at least weekly, right? I guess.
Well, for me, it's all about the little flying a-holes.
Yeah, you just can't stand the heat.
Either they
outside.
want to bite me or sting me, or now when I came home right before I called you to tell you that it was all out, I had just gone to the store, and it's like the universe does not want you and I to have milk. Mm-hmm. The minute I bring home a new container of milk, the power goes out. So milk equals bad.
Yeah, it's dead to me.
So we can't have milk anymore. So I said, I just got out of the car, walked into that store, came out, got back in the car, came in the house, and I was like, hey, I'm not a giant, steaming, sweaty mass of misery. What's going on? And I haven't even noticed the fact it's been pleasant outside.
The temperatures are in the 80s, and I guess the humidity is kind of low too. So, but yeah, I could tell the weather is changing. It's nice because
it won't last, but it's
before
really
nice. Before the hurricane for us,
it was
like
usual.
over 100. It was over 100.
But it's typical.
Hurricane came in, blew all that stuff up, and now we're doing good here.
Well,
temperature-wise,
the temperature was good, but since the day after the hurricane, I have done nothing but sneeze, have runny nose, stuffy nose, sinus pain, pressure. I'm having pains around my eye sockets, behind my eyeball. So if I seem a little bit off tonight, that's why my jaw aches and my teeth are kind of, it's that typical sinus crap. Even though I'm taking like off-brand Claritin.
Did you figure out what you want for lunch tomorrow?
Yeah. We will have an argument about that after the show.
Well, I just figured since Uncle Joe and Aunt Eva are listening, that it'd be easy to tell them we want lunch, and then to meet us at.
I don't know. Would it just be easier to have a wrestling match or something, or arm wrestle, or
Chili's? It is. I guess we'll call and let y'all know. This is funny to use the show as a direct messaging thing. So what else, Lana?
Well, let's go into some other less depressing news. More like tee-hee. Get this, babe. I'm sure you'll have something to say about this.
Oh.
Your favorite company, Best Buy.
Ugh.
Best Buy pulls Kaspersky Lab products after concerns over ties to the Russian government.
What? They're just now pulling it?
I know you just die laughing.
I mean, come on. I mean, what's funny about that, I've had my concerns about it before. That it was like, hey, where is this from? Who's putting this out? Oh, it's a Russian company. Okay. I have some concerns, but if everybody seems happy with it, I guess we can roll with it. But, yeah.
So, I'll tell you about it. So their Best Buy is concerned that I'm assuming it's Kaspersky. I'm not sure if it's pronounced like that. I'm just going to Kaspersky. Kaspersky. They're concerned that company is unduly influenced by the Russian government. And I don't know why this makes me laugh, but let me have something, okay? Just let me have some bit of happiness.
Okay.
So they're Moscow-based, that company, and they faced some allegations that they could be influenced by the Kremlin. There was a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing in May, which anything that has to do with government now, I'm just like,
I know.
spit and
Yeah.
turn your head. So some of these, our major U.S. intelligence agencies said they wouldn't be comfortable with the software being used on their computers when they're the ones that develop this stuff that spies on us. Our own government's more, I'd be more worried about our own government than the Russian government. But our Armed Service Committee specifically proposed prohibiting Kaspersky products due to reports that they might be vulnerable to Russian government influence. So the Space and Technology for the U.S. House of Representatives requested that all 22 government agencies share their documentation and communications regarding that company, which you'll find out tonight. I wonder if that's even possible for them to do that. But so they've got these concerns. So Best Buy said, hey, well, we'll just stop selling it because we don't even want to take a chance. But they were prompted by the media reports, congressional testimony, and industry discussion. I don't know why this is funny to me. It just is. It's just funny. Now, Kaspersky has denied these reports, saying it was caught in the midst of an international geopolitical battle, and it doesn't help that the government, all these governments are concerned with cyber espionage or offensive cyber efforts. That's a quote. And they noted that Best Buy's decision could be reevaluated down the road, but they can still be found at Amazon and Walmart, comrade.
Yeah, you find a virus in your system, and the thing goes, "Осторожно!" Surprise. Anyway, so I'm not really too surprised on that in the sense because
why is it so funny to me?
Remember, most recently we saw that thing about the Sustex. Is it? What's the name of that virus? The virus that they use.
Stuxnet.
Thank you very much. You remember that?
That's not. But it wasn't mostly about your computers.
No, but they brought up the company in Russia. And they talked to them.
Yes, they did talk to them, Kaspersky.
And it was like, so, let's see. I know this is going to be odd to hear this from us, but we don't use a name brand
Probably should tell people that.
virus thing, but we have tools. Yes,
well, we have tools to protect, but we don't have.
I don't speak fluent Russian. I wished I did. At one time, I tried to learn how to speak Russian, but da, niet, осторожно. I mean, there's some keywords I know, but I am fascinated by Russia, especially in a historical sense. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't do a show on some kind of Russian history there. Fascinated by the culture and stuff.
Would you have something else there?
No, you were eyeballing me, and
I'm just looking at what's going on here.
Well, the universe is going on out there.
I apologize. I didn't prep this part of the show because I was so focused on the other part. I ended up with 11 typed pages.
So anyone that knows me and follows me on Twitter saw that I had an accident recently. And I had been jonesing for some Smucker's strawberry jam. I love Smucker's. I don't care if it's a part of the global conspiracy, the GMOs or whatever. I just like Smucker's because it's got to be good, And so strawberry is my favorite. And I went to Walmart, I guess, after the big catastrophe when flood and all that, and you got a chance to go to the store and pick up some supplies again, I guess. And I got strawberries, and the strawberry thing fell out of the bag. I was so devastated. And yeah, I hear
first world problems.
Well, I hear you laughing over there. So anyway, the missus picked me up a new thing of Smucker's, and I posted the picture. And at some point, I'll with kit gloves make it to the refrigerator and put it in. I've been nervous about putting it in there because I'd hate for the power to.
Yeah.
So.
Meanwhile, my grape jelly is in a plastic jar, so no worries there.
Mm-hmm. So I've been made whole again because I have Smucker's, and I cannot wait to make a sandwich. I just need to get some bread and some milk now. And I have peanut
Yeah,
butter.
now that's the thing. I went to a major store Friday after work, and things are slowly getting back to normal. But they had milk. They had plenty of milk. They had some eggs, but the bread still looks like there's an apocalypse happening.
Oh, I imagine.
There's only one kind of bread, and it was like honey wheat, which is fine. But now the deli bakery section did have the in-store made bread, like, all your crazy stuff like sourdough and rye and pumpernickel, which we could still. That's probably what we should be buying, because it's just they're small loaves, and we're not. It's just two of us,
Well, I like to have bread. I like to have milk. I always seem to get sour cream. I know that drives you nuts. It's usually for a couple of dishes you make. Yeah. Oh, by the way, with the power thing, I don't know why it would be cutting out. I want to say an apology to our good friend Soloris Blue Raven. We were supposed to be on her show last night. Of course, the power was out. So
we were talking to her in Facebook chat,
but we're going to reschedule. When I say we, actually she rescheduled us. So we should be back on sometime in December.
By then, I bet the house will have burned down.
Well, let's hope not. And then, I didn't want to. We probably could have done it by phone, but
we could have.
The thing is that I just didn't want. Tina is Tina Marie over there at K Core. She's very hardcore. It's K Core. Very, very delicate. Very dedicated to providing a strong and good current.
We have no idea if she's delicate or not.
No, she's. What I'm trying to say is that she runs a very good type ship over there. And
you didn't want to drop the quality of their
audio. I didn't.
By being on our cell
I didn't want to
phones.
disappoint her because between Solaris and Tina Marie.
Although I think it would have been hilarious for you to be sitting in the van and me to be sitting in the Honda, on our phones having a live interview, and us staring at each other from across the vehicles.
We are sorry. We did not expect. I was looking forward to, and I know Solaris was looking forward to it too.
Yeah, so she likes us.
We'll give you an update as far as when we get closer to the rebroadcast or being us back on her show, and we encourage all the Space Cadets to come hang out on a Friday night if you're available. So that'll be cool. A few more things I want to touch about. I'm tired of the traffic. It's taken me on the average of about an extra hour to get to work, and I hate it. So I've, let's see here.
Well, this is post-hurricane stuff.
And so I have to play the goat noise, which that's the wrong goat noise.
It's okay, Miss Michelle's not here.
But anyway, it gets my goat. So anyway, you got anything else to add before we go to break?
Well, the traffic is still has to do with one place that has underwater. Beltway 8 has to be, there's some damage control happening there, plus a sinkhole, and a lot of the traffic lights are still out across the city.
Yeah.
So that contributes to it, and there was a major road way west, that was out due to flooding, the controlled flooding, and that has caused just a tremendous traffic jams like I've never seen before, unless something catastrophic happened. So I saw it Friday with my own eyes, and it was just, I was like, oh, forget this, I'm going home.
Okay, before we go to break, I just want to let everybody know that, our 2-year anniversary is coming up on September 30th. And, Kay brings up an interesting thing, because I guess everybody forgets how we label the shows and how you can figure out. Basically, we use a 3-digit system for our naming convention for our shows. The first digit tells you what season you're in, and the second and third digit represents usually the episode that you're on. So, for example, like tonight is season 1, episode 51. So it's show number 151. So if you ever want to look through the archives and we say, yeah, that was the first season, and now we're getting into our second season, you can kind of narrow it down and get to what shows or what faster. So just wanted to bring that up because, indeed, our anniversary, 2 years, Solana, we've been doing this. And
Yeah.
I don't think we've really missed a beat. Even through thick and thin with nature and all this stuff, and we've continued to broadcast, and so especially tune in to when we flip the show dial to episode 2, season 2, episode 1, coming this 30th when we celebrate our 2-year anniversary here on the SBU network. So, so with that said, and I stumble across my words, let's go ahead and take our bottom of the hour break.
Already?
And
Wow.
and when we come
Cool.
back,
Oh, for heaven's sake. Stop that.
we talk about the shadow government.
Nope. No more of that.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Sirlana.
All right, it's a great night here at the SBU, and if anybody out there can let Dino know that the show is on tonight, that would be great. He's been getting frustrated because we don't tell him. It seems like he can't give himself a notification or a sticky note somewhere. And
Other shows don't do that for
I
people.
know, and that's the kind of show you get with us. We want you to know personally here to reach out to your fellow space cadet.
Reach out to your feathered friends. Tell all the birds you know.
Yes, because bird is...
Tie a little note to their leg.
So, yeah, let Dino know that the show is on because, we love him, too, here at the SBU. So, Solana, tonight is an interesting topic. It's been out there in many things that we've seen and
There
read.
is so much information on this topic. It's more than I could tackle in a week, so I try to go just to a few sources. I mined the library at work, and I think the best stuff I found was from whistleblowers from presentations on YouTube. So you'll be hearing me talk about two people a lot. You probably even heard of these people. But so if we want to get into it, what are we talking about when we say the shadow government? Now, we're talking specifically in this country, in the U.S., in America. There are probably some in other countries too, but we can't really speak to that. So we mean there is a shadow government within our government of elected officials and the people we supposedly put in charge to represent our ways of thinking, our wants and our needs. But this government is behind the scenes, and it's a conglomerate, I think, of different individuals who have goals that are not the goals that we have, that we've wanted, that we voted in, that work outside of the law, outside of the Constitution, and it's been there since 1947. Or 1927, depending on which event you want to link this to. So if that makes it clear, I don't know. But as we go on, you'll understand if you're not understanding what we mean. So the U.S. Constitution has been recognized in this country for over 150 years, but it no longer seems to have any meaning. Now, it has some great ideals we want to cling to, but nobody seems to want to bother to enforce them because I suppose none of them really line up with the agenda of making money. So we can look at some evidence of why our U.S. government is not what it seems. So where this all kind of started was maybe just before the Great Depression. And there's evidence that the Great Depression itself might have been very deliberately done. So 1933 to 45, after that, you've got the Cold War, and we had all those threats about communism. You remember all that paranoia after World War II? Everybody looking who's a commie, who's a pinko, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And that seems so ludicrous to us now. But now fascism seems to be sort of the preferred ruling method. It's just dressed up as democracy now. That's what it seems like to me.
And that's interesting because how recently I've been talking about how well I've actually there's been a family member that's been on Facebook that's said a few things and I've really come down to the thing about how can you say this about one group, right? Mm-hmm. But what to say once you say that about them and you eliminate them, you go make that broader, and you're a part of that next group just because of maybe a last name or maybe because of a relative. And so the thing is that there was the first they came for this group, and I didn't say anything, and then they came for that group, and it's based on a poem that I can't think of the Lutheran. Well, the long story short is that that is what we see in society today. It's like history repeating itself.
Yeah, I'm sure they're coming for me any day now.
But getting back to how you've got these people behind the shadows, if you will. I'm sure you're going to dive into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I'm still in the introduction area.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to break you up. It just, when the tangent comes to me, I just like to roll with it. And
I'm sorry I keep adjusting my headset. It just, maybe it's because my head hurts. I feel like it's squeezing my head tonight. I'm sorry about that. Well, another aspect you might want to take into account, if you want to look at this as like, this is a conspiracy that goes into all these others. Now, this is the definition I have found for a shadow government. It says a shadow government is a family of conspiracy theories based on the notion that real and actual political power resides not with publicly elected representatives, but with private individuals who are exercising power behind the scenes beyond the scrutiny of democratic institutions. And according to this belief, official elected government is really, in reality, is subservient to the shadow government who are a true executive power. I would put it to you, it's not a conspiracy, that it is real and happening. So, something to take into account with this is that notion of UFOs and aliens. Whether they are real or not is the idea of it creates a possible threat and a certain paranoia that requires actions that our government can use to disregard a constitution. So a threat to our security outweighs these constitutional policies, so to speak. So when the Roswell crash happened in 1947, there was that possibility of our government said, oh, there's a possibility of aliens, and that became a public concern, although they hastily covered that up. So I think that was the beginning of the really big black budgets. So the mess that we're making of our economy and the environment also affects our international interaction. So we go into debt with other countries like, what's our biggest one? China, maybe? And when we have to deal with these different cultures and they run their countries on their set of beliefs and they conflict with ours, and then we have different classes of society and languages, that also could create a power vacuum where you've got people running behind the scenes. And another factor I didn't consider, since during World War II, remember all the propaganda that happened in this country about, oh, well, you need to sacrifice and give your scrap metal and save your stamps to get money and all for the war effort and all that, all those posters. And that was the beginning of propaganda in this country, and they started using it for their own end even after the war. So, and during then you've got that heightened sense of paranoia about Hitler and Nazis, and there was all that censorship of the media and Hollywood. Remember the Hayes Department? Mm-hmm. So everything was under such strict control during that time. It also kind of showed the powers that be how effective keeping control of things were so tightly. So why would they ever want to give it up?
Well, once you get a bit of taste of power, it's, and then it goes into power corrupts, absolutely.
Absolute power.
Yeah, absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
Now, you'd commented on this too, and you'll comment, I'm sure. President Eisenhower warned in his second term of the danger of our freedoms to the military-industrial complex.
Yes.
So, has this been the case since World War II? Have they been in charge? Was Eisenhower trying to tell us something without just coming out and saying, hey, it's more like a system of control that the Soviet Union has. The thing that we were most concerned about with them seems to be what we're becoming.
And it's quick to point out that Eisenhower was a military man. He was a well-known general during World War II.
So if he says it's bad, it must be real bad, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So we still have presidential elections and representatives, and people run for Senate, and we vote them in. Mm-hmm. And then half the country, this president goes in, and then this half the country gets upset. And then we get switched. The next 8 years, we'll switch to this person, and this half country gets upset. But does it really matter who is president?
I got to be honest here. As if you look through history, this really didn't start until the new millennium. And I know you're probably looking at it. What are you saying, Space Boy?
Taking a sip of
That's fine.
Diet Cherry Dr. Pepper, not sponsored.
I mean, the thing is that I think that people were still kind of, at least willing to talk to the other side, so to speak, before the election of George Bush Jr. And all the Chad things that went down in Florida. And
I've read so many things tied to both senior and junior, Clinton, both Clintons. Of course, everything from Wilson onward. It's just not good.
Oh, well, are you speaking of Wilson, the president?
Woodrow Wilson, sorry.
Woodrow Wilson? Yeah, that's a whole ball of wax that, I think he probably in my ranks is the worst president ever. And maybe we should do a show on that. Just as a historical context.
Just so you know, we are going to have to get into some politics tonight from a historical perspective and some more recent politics. Try not to kill each other. There's no way I can not talk about it talking about government. So,
because the president, in every sense, it plays a role in the sense of being a non-role.
Remember in the chat and on social media, we all love each other. We all care about one another.
Can't we all just get along?
We are not our political opinions, okay? So, it really seems to me more like our president is a figurehead, just like monarchy in the UK. They're just there for prettiness and to have babies and keep you looking at their sparkly things. So, with that in mind, so if it's not the president that's in charge, there still has to be some kind of centralized decision-making going on. So who's doing it? And it's working too well for it to be disorganized or, this faction's doing their thing, that faction's doing their thing. So whoever it is, it's some faceless people or persons operating secretly. So therefore, that is the shadow government. It's people who are already there, but they have this other agenda and they're doing other things, which I will point out specifics here soon. So we've got these distinct factions, and they're doing their different things for their own reasons, and all in the name of profit. So, regardless of your religious beliefs or lack of them, it says, Jesus said in the Bible, money is the root of all evil, and that's where you can trace. All of this goes back to greed. So, the concept of the shadow government probably didn't really come to prominence, this is what I found out, until President Kennedy's assassination, where it really came to light. And I'll get more into that just a little bit later. So our constitutional government was never the same after this assassination. So there's a lot of speculation as to the motivation behind the assassination. One of it was said that, Kennedy was going to reveal all the corruption in the CIA as well as the presence of UFOs. So, I don't know if that's true or not, but they're saying that's also what took Marilyn Monroe's life, is she was going to spill all the beans about it too. So, it's a matter of what you believe. So, one article I read on a web said, in 1963 is the year that the shadow government went into full effect over computerized voting in this country. They got control of this in exchange for the covering up of the Kennedy assassination via the Warren Commission. So they made a deal. They're like, you shut this up and we'll let you have the elections. You can control them. So basically, we don't have a democracy anymore. What we have is an oligarchy. That means there's several people or factions of people running the country, not just one person, like a monarchy or, a democracy, which is supposed to be us. But so there's no one individual running things. It seems more like, from what I found out, a loose alliance, even kind of bitter alliance between various organizations. And when I say organizations, who am I talking about? I'm talking about the alphabet soup.
Right.
I'm talking about CFR, CIA, NSA. Well, we could go on, and we will. And we'll get into that. Hey, Michelle, you've missed the goat. Anyway, she upset me. So we're going to talk about who is the shadow government. And I don't want to get too far in this because I see we've got about 8 minutes. So we want to get into this. So there's no consensus on this from what I've discovered. But they're saying, of course, the major financial institutions, which should be banks and banking investors, are behind it. But then they're saying, no, it's really the military industrial complex, with them, coming up with these black budgets for different weapons and technology. And I've also read there's really no permanent center, and it shifts from time to time. So what I found is a lot of things are pointing to maybe 2 or 3 agencies. The possibility is that it is the Council on Foreign Relations. It could be the Trilateral Commission.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say the Council of Ricks.
I think it is the Council of Ricks. The Bilderbergs, the Federal Reserve, the World Bank, or even the International Monetary Fund. But it can't be the Council of Ricks because Rick C-137 went in there, blasted them all up, and then jumped mind transfers.
True.
Till, I don't know, we don't know which version Rick is in now.
A little Rick sidetrack there for everyone.
That's ridiculous.
Yes, it is. Alphabet soup, and then you didn't even touch upon the conspiracy with the alien conspiracy.
Well, if you want to touch it, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say there's so many different.
Yes, like I said, this is
who's pulling the strings kind of thing.
We could have a part 2 and 3 and 4 on this.
I mean, it's just
a huge topic, man.
I mean, it depends on who you're talking to. I mean, if you talk about David Icke, it's the aliens, and if you talk to Alex Jones, it's the Bilderberg group, man. So it just depends on who you talk to. It's but I lean more on the lines of the alphabet soup with what you're about to say.
And I'm going to talk about one major whistleblower and what he says is happening, and I felt that was really a better source to go to. Mm-hmm. So, I'm looking at the time here.
Yeah, you're doing good. I'm watching the...
Okay, well, let's talk about the CFR, because many things I have read is pointing this is all when it went south. So, who or what is the Council on Foreign Relations? Ever heard of it yourself there, Spaceboy?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stuff.
Okay, I'm just checking. So, the CFR was founded in 1921 in this country as a nonprofit think tank that specializes on foreign policy and international affairs. So that doesn't sound too bad. So the headquarters is in New York City. It has about 5,000 or less members. That includes senior politicians, secretaries of state, CIA directors, bankers, lawyers, professors, and senior media persons. Keep that in mind, senior media persons. They sit around and make foreign policy recommendations to the president's administration. Still sounds pretty benign. David Rockefeller joined this council in 1949. So this group has the brain power and the finances and the influences to drive their agendas. So there you go right there. Power, money, and influence. Now, another article I read, man, I've got to make this bigger. I'm getting so old. I'm on a second monitor. This monitor is a lot further away from me. So this other article I read about the CFR said that it's a ruling elite in the U.S., and it has been going on for 70 years. Now, I don't know if you've heard of this guy, Felix Frankfurter, the Justice of the Supreme Court, 1939 to 1962. So Frankfurter said, the real rulers in Washington are invisible and exercise power from behind the scenes. Now, founding president of the Council of Foreign Relations was John W. Davis, J.P. Morgan's personal attorney. So Professor Carol Quigley said that the CFR was a front group for J.P. Morgan and Company in association with the very small American Roundtable Group, which I've never heard of. The Rockefellers came on board with their idea about a one world government. They wanted that because it would allow a central banking and they could tap into that. So remember, the Rockefellers is a family that produced John D. Rockefeller, who said competition is a sin. And we did a whole show about the what was it called? We did Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan.
Oh, the
captains of industry.
Yeah, yes.
So go back and look at that in our archives. So another guy, Frederick C. Howell, revealed the strategy of using this government in his 1906 book, Confessions of a Monopolist. He said, "These are the rules of big business. Get a monopoly, let society work for you, and remember that the best of all business is politics." So it comes from a corrupt way of thinking. It comes from big business and people who are in it for the money. So I'm sure all this foreign policy was, how can we make more money for ourselves, not the U.S., and get away with it? So I even read that the stock market crash of 1929 was carefully contrived because the international bankers sought to bring about a condition of despair so badly that so they could emerge as rulers of all. Now, what does this? I know you'll have opinion on this, Spaceboy. Mm-hmm. Insiders didn't suffer during that crash because they got tipped off ahead of time what was going to happen.
Insider trading, yes.
Mm-hmm. So they took America off the gold standard in 1934 deliberately, because this was part of it, so some people could profit and the rest of us would suffer. Mm-hmm. So they took us off the gold standard, and it meant unrestrained money supply, expansion and inflation, and it gave the bankers huge profits, but not to anyone else. They are the ones who caused the Great Depression. They are the ones who loans out the money. And how do you get out of debt? You have to take out a loan to pay more money for money you don't have. So you see, it's a never-ending cycle of debt, and it's kind of like slavery of money. And that's what they wanted. So should I just pause there?
Yeah. Of course, at that time, in fact, it was today we celebrate the actual 40th anniversary of Richard Nixon taking America off the gold standard. I just thought I'd throw that at you.
I thought it was earlier than that, didn't I?
Yeah, but back in the 30s, yeah. I believe FDR was having everybody's gold picked up and taken.
Jeez.
And so, yeah, that's why if you've ever seen cartoons from that time period, you see people putting money under their
beds
mattress,
and
yes,
burying
and
it in
stuff,
the yard,
because they were trying to keep it away from the government. So just a little
Right.
factoid of history. So, hey guys, you're listening to Spaceboy Universe. I'm Spaceboy and she's Sorlana, and we'll be right back after this. No, I don't want to buy art. Hey, everybody, we're back, and stupid web pages. I just wanted to point out, as Sir Lana was talking about the gold standard. Indeed, Richard Nixon did take us off the gold standard, but actually going back to 1933, FDR basically tried to take us off the gold standard, and basically. I guess Congress enacted a joint resolution nullifying the right of creditors to demand payment for gold. So basically they went off. But, the thing is that indeed people started hoarding gold. And but I guess at some point,
I don't blame them.
It didn't work is what happened during that time. So it was an ineffective way of...
What were they... Like coming to your door knocking, like, "Hey, we need your gold," and people just
basically, taking your gold, and you don't got much of anything to say. Basically, like I said, in 1971, in fact, August is when Richard Nixon announced that the United States would no longer convert dollars to gold at a fixed value. So they basically went off the gold standard. And so is history, and there you go.
And that was done very, very purposely.
Mm-hmm.
So what's...
And that's the...
What's to stop them from doing something like that
That's
now?
the front story. It's like, okay, the conspiracy of Fort Knox. Is there gold at Fort Knox?
Is there?
Many people think that there is. It's just a front. That there is no gold at Fort Knox. Of all people, Ron Paul tried to go in, and he wants to... Actually, Ron Paul wants to edit...
I'm going to talk about him, too.
Yeah, Ron Paul wants to go in and edit the... he at the time when he was in Congress, to go in and take an accounting of America's gold. And they wouldn't let him go in there. In fact, I can't remember the last time. It was sometime during the 70s where... late 60s, early 70s, where people were allowed to go in this one time to go take a look, and they went in and they saw a vault that had gold in it, but that was the extent of what they got.
It was probably a bunch of bricks painted gold.
No telling. So, I'm sure that's what inspired the James Bond movie with the I can't remember the episode. I'm sure Bob might know. He's a movie aficionado like I am.
Which James Bond is it, Bob?
When they go to battle out
is that the woman where the woman's in gold and she dies?
I don't know if that's Goldfinger or not. It could be. But anyway, I digress. So anyway,
that's fine.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the gold thing because it's an interesting part of history.
Well, so we're talking about the Council on Foreign Relations, and this is all tied together, so everything you said was relevant too. So it's all part of a larger conspiracy for a small group of people to profit and put us in a state where we're more easily controlled. Now, if you want to call this shadow government the Illuminati, you can. It could be. I didn't go there, but you could easily just paste that over as a template, Now, with the Council on Foreign Relations... since 1934, I didn't put the 19 in front of the 34, I don't know why I did it. Since 1934, nearly all, not completely all, but nearly all U.S. Secretaries of State have been CFR members, as well as Secretaries of War or Defense. Now, the CIA was born out of the CFR, and there's going to be tons of acronyms, so keep up. Central Intelligence Agency was created by the Council on Foreign Relations, which is headquartered in New York City. So, the CFR wants to manage a world economy thinking, too much Dr. Pepper. I was trying to stay awake. CFR wants to manage the world economy thinking that's a peaceful global solution for them. Other members of the Council on Foreign Relations are George Bush Sr. and Bill Clinton. The CFR wants a new world order, which would be controlled by the United Nations. But once again, where did we get the United Nations from?
Woodrow Wilson.
It was created here in America by the Council on Foreign Relations, and it's in Manhattan. It's sitting, UN is sitting on land that was donated by David Rockefeller. So you see how they're all in bed with each other? Mm-hmm. So the Council of Foreign Relations has media people. I told you, remember that? They have media people as their members. So they control what gets out to the public. So you wonder how our mainstream media gets so twisted and manipulated what's coming directly from within the alphabet soup.
I just want to take a step back to label the UN. Before it was called the UN, it was the League of Nations, and it was first.
Sounds like a DC thing.
It was created in the sense of World War I, and they wanted to put together a group of people, nations, League of Nations, so to come together so they could probably. Do this disputes, and we kind of see this now with the UN today, especially with Korea, where you have U.S. is mad at Korea doing the bomb testing, and so they put sanctions on, and they've got approval from other countries to do the sanctions to come together, and ultimately, the front is to prevent some kind of world catastrophe or World War. I guess in our sense, it would be the next World War III. And so that's why historically it was developed. But anyway, I digress. So,
and you mentioned Fort Knox. Is there anything? Just an aside thing, I just remembered when we were watching. I don't know if it was The Next Generation or if it was Deep Space Nine, Star Trek. They had mentioned in passing, I forget what they're talking about, that the Ferengi had these pilgrimages to Fort Knox.
Oh yeah.
Because it was supposed to be, where all the gold, the most gold, I guess, in the whole friggin' universe was there.
Yeah.
They kind of looked at it as a place of worship. So, okay. The reason I asked about audio in the chat is because our cable line is dangling, so it's a possibility,
I just want to point out that as an IT guy, the best thing whenever you're having problems with your computer or some electronic device, go ahead and reboot. The magic of a reboot fixes a lot of things. So if you ever find that the audio is kind of messing up on you, just do that. And $10 to a donut, you'll be right as rain.
I'm never paying $10 for a donut. Anyway,
if it's dirty.
I don't want to have to bother to explain that. Anyway, so you see that where. These questions, you're like, well, where does all this crap come from? Well, it looks like it started, it looks as if it started with the Council on Foreign Relations, but it's going to get deeper and darker here. Mm-hmm. So, they have the media, which the members on the CFR who are in the media are members who write for the Washington Post, Time, and Life magazine. Anybody remember George Bush Jr. calling for a new world order during the Gulf War?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could look at it and say, oh, maybe he meant a new world order of peace, but I kind of doubt it.
All right.
The point is to get us all to surrender
and the reason
our
why,
independence.
and here, I just want to interject this one. My doubt came because George Bush Sr. was over the CIA.
Right, he was.
Yes, at one time. And so it kind of like, what's he up to?
He actually, I heard that Senior, when he was leaving the CIA, told the incoming president to kiss his you-know-what. So, anyway, but what they really want to do is get us to surrender our independence to them, because that'll just help them more. And that's, you could probably bring up the word Illuminati if you'd wish to.
Illuminati.
So, within the CFR, there is a smaller but more powerful group of bankers who want a total banking monopoly. Now, the Council of Foreign Relations claims they have no affiliation with the U.S. government other than to make recommendations, except, that one time when one of its members was elected president, Clinton, they really are the government, the CFR. James Warburg, son of the CFR founder Paul Warburg, and a member of FDR's Brain Trust, testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on February 17, 1950, where he said, We shall have world government, whether or not you like it, by consent or conquest. See, they see our Constitution as quote-unquote outdated. The one, that gives us all our rights and freedoms, that Constitution, well, that's outdated. We've got way too much freedom. So, the bankers have got all this cash. So, does that mean the Federal Reserve controls all? So now we're going to start getting it. We just talked about the Council on Foreign Relations. Now we'll talk about bankers and the Federal Reserve. Mm-hmm. As I said, Felix Frankfurter, the Justice Supreme Court, 39-62, he also said, the real rulers in Washington are invisible and exercise power from behind the scenes. So, in a letter to an associate, 21st of November 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt wrote this: the real truth of the matter is, as you and I know, that a financial element in the large centers has owned the government ever since the days of Andrew Jackson, and I'll clarify that in a minute. Also, Baron M.A. Rothschild said, give me control over a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its laws, and boy, he ought to know. Does that make any sense to you? Because the name Rothschild? So, what they're saying is, whoever is in control of a nation's money is in control of that whole nation, regardless who is president, who you elected as your congressman, what bills got passed. If they're in control of the government, of the money, doesn't matter what you do or say as president, for instance. Now, this is why, and I don't know if this is the state anymore, this is why digital currency could have been a real threat in our favor to this hidden ruling organization that does control the money, whoever it may be. But Bitcoin and Bitcoin clones have not made that wide adoption by consumers, retailers, and people who sell goods and services. If it was, we might stand a chance of that would be a money of the people, for the people, by the people, a pure democratic currency. But right now it costs, I haven't looked at, the last time I looked at it was over $3,000 to purchase one Bitcoin. So you do still need real fiat money to buy made up digital alternative money. So does it matter about digital until we can fully convert over to that? And I don't know if that is going to happen. That could be in our favor, but I just don't know if it's really going to happen. It would have to just be something you'd have to educate people on what it is, how to use it. It seems very simple to us because we're tech people. You just go on, you purchase a wallet, and you have your Bitcoin. And we did a bit of a show on that. So does this mean that the Federal Reserve in this country is really in charge, or is it the banks, or is it both of them? Now, this one I did not know. Historically, America actually tried to have a central bank 1816 to 1836. But it was abolished by President Andrew Jackson because he thought it threatened our nation. And that bank tried to control and influence the government. It created distress, and it was a lesson for Americans who thought it was all for the greater good when it was not. Jackson said it was hostile, the central bank, and if we allow banks to control the currency, the inflation and deflation of the value, then they have all the control, even so far as to own our property. Now, the Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913 to try to stabilize the economy. Now, see, that's a few years before the Great Depression. So that act tried to establish the most gigantic trust on earth, meaning the invisible government by the money power will be legalized. So if you just look at our economy's history, you'll see that the Federal Reserve can control the value of money by inflation, deflation, and federal debt whenever it pleases. That's not stability. That's just some jackasses in control benefiting and profiting in their pocket. Okay, so Congressman Louis McFadden, he's House Committee on Banking and Currency Chairman from 1920 to 31. Now, this is what he said. When the Federal Reserve Act was passed, The people of the U.S. did not perceive that a world banking system was being set up here. It created a super state controlled by the international bankers and industrialists who acted together to enslave the world, and every effort has been made by the feds to control its powers. But the truth is, the Fed has been usurped. The Federal Reserve has usurped the government. And did you know the Federal Reserve is not subject to oversight by our Congress or our president? Did you know that? I didn't know that. Congress just gave private banks permission to print money. And did I mention just a few of the shareholders in the Federal Reserve? Goldman Sachs, Rockefeller, and Rothschild. May have heard of those families also mentioned with the terms New World Order.
True. And also, most recently in history, what was it, the banking you just mentioned?
Yeah.
What was the name of it again?
Which banking? Goldman Sachs?
Yeah,
Rockefeller,
Golden Sachs. They got the bailout, and too big to fail kind of situation. Why were they too big to fail? Why were they made a priority to taken care of? Mm-hmm. There's more to
because they're helping each other out behind the scenes, padding each other's pockets. Here's something also they found out. It's not just a shadow government; it's also the deep state. And what I didn't understand is, and it's a lot like, hey, you've got the internet, which is called the clear web. Then you've got the deep web, which is stuff that's behind a wall you can't see, like, banking transactions and things that are protected. Then you have the dark web, which is the dark, slimy, scary underbelly of the internet. So this is what I liken it to. You've got the shadow government, but within that, there's something called the deep state. Now, this is where I'm going to get into whistleblower testimony. You can get on YouTube right now and type in this guy's name. Kevin Shipp, S-H-I-P-P. He's a former CIA agent, anti-terrorist expert, and he says the deep state is a financial entity that runs on money, power, and greed, and the fueled by intimidation that they have tactics for. It also runs the shadow government. So this part I'm going to talk about, is it really the CIA that's the deep state running everything? And remember the CIA was created by the CFR. So get out your org charts and start putting this together.
Yes.
I want to see your Visio files at the end of the show. So,
what she's basically saying, you need to get out your corkboard, post
some red string with some push pins,
and push pins, and start tying these all together. So,
and I know we're kind of making fun of it, but I really do believe what this guy is saying, Kevin Shipp. So, he's also said that Google worked with this secret government, shadow government, so to create Google Earth. And Google Earth is only there so we can be spied on more easily. It's not just so you can see, what your house looked like from 2 years ago. He also says the top two tiers in this government, shadow government, is the NSA. And who's controlling all of that? The CIA. Bev, I don't know if you just came late, but Bev, the CFR is the Council on Foreign Relations. And they were created in 1927, and they kind of started this chain of evil. So the CFR created the CIA in 1921, and of course, it tied right into mainstream media. Here's something I didn't know that is a little bit chilling. Jeff Bezos, you know who he is?
yes, he's Dr. Evil.
He owns Amazon.
I know he knows. Owns Amazon, but he does.
He just bought the Washington Post and entered into some kind of agreement with the CIA. So Kevin also goes on, says that our elected officials are controlled and manipulated by the deep state, how they vote, and what information they see. Our own Congress, we no longer have a voice and what they do. We elect them, but we have no control over what they do after they get into office. The deep state owns the military-industrial complex. So this would lead me to believe that it's not the military in charge. They're a tool for the deep state. So he also says we might as well have representatives from Saudi Arabia in our Congress because they have a serious impact on our decisions. The Federal Reserve's deliberations are totally secret because they have no oversight. They don't have to report to anyone. Wall Street's involved in the deep state, as well as our banks, world banks, and the Federal Reserve, because they all want a one world currency because it's easier to control. So, in order to get what they need, we have to be in a perpetual state of war. We have to be declaring war on somebody or something. And because that keeps the money flowing. Excuse me. And why do we have to be in war? Because it makes them big money. Again, this CIA agent said after 9/11, there are 10,000 secret sites under government control. Corporations like Lockheed Martin, Booz Allen Hamilton, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman. Lockheed Martin is the chief maker of surveillance equipment in this country. They track every contact you and I have with the IRS. It's kind of like having a second private government, Lockheed Martin. They have, this guy said, think of it this way. When you pay your taxes, $260 of your taxes go to Lockheed Martin so they can pay for spying on us. They even track our packages through the Postal Service, as well as all our digital information. Turns out this country, the U.S., is the biggest arms dealer in the world, and it's widely profitable for the shadow government, not for us. But you don't want your hands on this blood money, trust me. The senior members of Congress get $700,000 for these contracts. Heard of McCain? John McCain, Senator McCain, he ran for president.
Mm-hmm.
McCain's been pushing war because McCain gets contributions from these big businesses, these contracts, like to the tune of over $600,000. So these companies manipulate congressmen with cash.
Indeed.
And it's very, very easy. So Kevin Shipp also says in his lecture, the other alphabet organizations are in on it. They are the shadow government, the NSA, the CSRA, the CRS, SAIC, and then you've got Booz Allen Hamilton and, these other military organizations that were making stuff. And they're not accountable to anybody, and it's all in the secret budgets, and they keep that locked down under the notion that, that's national security. We can't tell you that because that would compromise our national security. So, 5.9 million went to aid in Pakistan and other countries like that absolutely hate us. But we send them money and equipment because it makes money for senators and businesses over here. Again, not for us. Meanwhile, they leave security of this country vulnerable because they're too busy making money. He says our Congress stole the Social Security Fund outright. They spent it and it's gone. Mm-hmm. And they're also, it's bankrupt, it's gone. It's because they stole the money. He says we have money to throw away for other countries and places where people hate us, but we have poverty in our own country. And he says it's just not right. And as I was telling you earlier, President Truman thought that the CIA was a bit off because the CIA has influence and control over the other alphabet organizations. The president gets false intelligence about Iraq that cost over 500,000 Iraqis' lives. It completely destabilized the Middle East and kept it in bloodbath because it was big business over here. Now, I was listening to this guy, and you know how when you're on YouTube, it's like, if you like this, you want to see this too. And I'm like, yeah, I do want to see that too. So this is not really apropos but I think it's all part of the big, giant puzzle. And I'm kind of wondering if I should not get into it right now. Do you want to
Actually,
take it
let's go
a little
ahead.
early?
We're at the bottom of the hour, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the fabulous dynamic duo of Spaceboy and Solana on the...
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Solana.
take a drink.
Shut up.
We're just waiting for the lovely Sirlana to take a drink after stuffing her mouth full of goldfish. Yes, the ideal snack food for broadcasters is to stick a bunch of crackers in your mouth
Stop
just
it.
before you're coming back from the break.
It's fine.
Oh, I'm glad you're fine. So, where did we leave off, Sirlana?
You made me laugh. Well, I was going to tell you.
Not to stuff crackers in my mouth.
Excuse me now. See, now you're making me cough. You know, you're not helping anybody.
Blaming it on me.
So, I was telling you, basically, all this stuff going on behind the scenes with the shadow government deep state is all about lining pockets with money. If that's all they care about. In fact, the more they can take from anybody, including us, the better. So, I got off track a tad when I was listening to Kevin Shipp, because I saw this other video off to the side. So I was like, well, I'm going to check out and see what this is. But it turns out, I think this all kind of fits together within this larger conspiracy. Okay, so I saw this video. It was this woman's testimony lecture. I don't know where she was giving it, but it was kind of hard to take her seriously because wherever she was, it wasn't a terribly formal setup, because right behind where she was standing was a giant painting or reproduction of dogs playing poker. So that was so distracting. They did have her stand off to the side where you couldn't see the entire painting or
that's a travesty. I mean, a classic picture
well,
is
there
dogs
was a
playing
guy
poker.
who stood there, who was supposed to introduce, who stood there for 4 minutes just rambling about nonsense in his button-down T-shirt with his T-shirt underneath it.
And the next week we'll have Jell-O and the...
but he was standing in front of the giant dogs playing
but
poker.
I think his part was a little too long. And
I was like, shut up, get to the good stuff. Anyway, here's the good stuff.
Okay.
So everything this other person's saying, I think kind of lines up and corroborates what Kevin Shipp was talking about. So her name is Susan Lindauer, Lindauer. You can find this on YouTube. She was a CIA asset, but also now whistleblower. So I'm not really sure what that means, other than that she had a CIA handler, which is, I guess, is her supervisor, that would tell her, go here and do this. And she would go there and do that. So she was in the CIA prior to September 2001, 9/11. And she said prior to September 2001, peace was about to break out in the Middle East. Believe it or not, Iraq was ready and willing to cooperate with the U.S. Iraq would have given us anything we wanted them to give us just to get all their sanctions lifted. Now, Susan said they invited our FBI to come over to Iraq and come tour, see anything they wanted, inspect anything they wanted. They told us they would have signed some kind of contract or entered an agreement where they would have bought only American goods and services for the next 10 years. They would have bought nothing but American cars, nothing but American pharmaceuticals. Anything we wanted to sell them, they would have bought it for 10 years in return of lifting the sanctions, because the sanctions were costing thousands of lives for the Iraqis because, they couldn't get some supplies they needed. Saddam Hussein, she said, was one of our main sources for finding terrorists in the Middle East because he didn't like terrorism either. Lindauer said that we threatened Iraq with war because we told the Iraqis, if we find out that y'all knew even a shred of evidence that there was going to be attack or hijacking of our airplanes, we were going to rain hellfire down on them like they have never seen before. So our CIA had advanced knowledge of the attacks and that they knew the Trade Center was going to be targeted. So they were looking for people who were going to hijack the plane. Now, she said through all this, Iraq suffered more than we did. The shadow government, CIA, can operate outside the visible government. And Kevin Shipp said, We took out an entire wedding party over there somewhere just to find one guy. They found this guy, was going to a wedding to attend, and they said, there he is, obliterated the entire wedding party. He says the CIA operates with it was created and operates with no congressional approval, no oversight. It operates outside the Constitution, and that's how it functions still. It's staffed by unelected officials and put into place by secret programs no one knows about or has any oversight on. So, Kevin Shipp also said that they can shut down legal cases. They can issue warrants, and they can put wiretaps anywhere they want. They even, and this is all outside the Constitution and highly illegal. 1947, the National Security Act was passed by Truman, and he deeply regretted it later because it went outside his authority. So they can direct the NSA. The CIA can have the NSA perform functions and duties. Their charter says nothing about performing covert operations. There's no wording about what the CIA can and cannot do, and they take advantage of that. Kevin Shipp also said only a few congressmen knew that Hillary Clinton was going to run guns to Benghazi. Supposedly, he says, there's all this talk about Russia supposedly hacked our elections, but he says what's really going on is there's a Cold War inside our own government between the shadow government and the visible government. The shadow government has spied on the Senate, hacked into their computers, read their emails, tapped them to find out what they were saying in private in their offices, and wanted to see what they were talking about when they were looking at reports on torture. That's a violation of law, and it's a felony. And no one was indicted. And this was all during President Obama. Now, he couldn't do anything about this because he didn't have true authority. No president can control or stop the CIA. Now, try to remain calm. I've got to talk about our current president. Yet, Kevin Shipp says Donald Trump is so out of the box, he has terrified the shadow government. The first thing that Trump wanted to know when he got in office is, what has the CIA been doing? What are their current programs? He wants to examine all of them, and he wanted to know about the JFK assassination. Like, what was that all about? Who did it? And the result of that was the head of CIA said, look, you do not cross the CIA. We have 6 ways to Sunday of getting back at you. So does this mean they can take out the president? Well, speaking of taking out the president, let's talk about JFK for a split second. Kevin Shipp said something that I'm sure all of you know, but see, JFK was before my time. So I'm just now going back and looking at history and finding out what's what. And so I didn't know this. He said, you could point to the corruption of our government by the shadow government back to JFK, which I told you earlier. Mm-hmm. So when John F. Kennedy fired the head of the CIA, Allen Dulles, Dulles went off and banded together other former CIA operatives and worked about trying to bring the president down by, finding ways to block policies and just generally making his life, difficult. The president, that is. So, next thing you know, John F. Kennedy is assassinated. And it's like, okay, well, we got to put this commission together to find out what happened. So they set up the Warren Commission to investigate it. Who's heading the Warren Commission? Allen Dulles. You talk about the fox being in the hen house. Allen Dulles formed a committee, put himself the head of it. He chose who testified and coached the witnesses on what they would say. I didn't know any of that because, it was before my time. So I'm now going back and finding out this stuff. So Kevin Shipp says the shadow government has not changed since 1947. The NSA are its eyes and ears. They look at everything that we do as digital, our emails, our money transactions, our, debit card, credit card, everything is collected. Now, there has been some reform of the NSA because of Edward Snowden. And he said if it wasn't for Edward Snowden, there would be no reform. Snowden let us find out a bunch about the NSA we would never found out otherwise. And Kevin Shipp sees Snowden as a hero, and he said Edward Snowden was right to get out of this country because he would not have been around for very long if he had not. And Kevin Shipp says, he quotes Ron Paul. Ron Paul says, anytime the government says it's reformed something, you need to be suspicious. So all of the info the NSA collected before this reform is still around. They didn't do anything with it. They still have it. And they have collected enough digital bytes on us, on American citizens, to fill the entire state of Rhode Island and Delaware. And this information is being stored at the Utah Data Center, which is a multi-billion-dollar complex. It's massive. You know, can you imagine all the computers in there, servers storing. They had to create and build special massive cooling systems because, you know, computers need to be cooled. There is a FISA report that approves the surveillance of any American citizen. The NSA has control and authority over our cybersecurity. They can investigate any U.S. citizen in the name of cybersecurity. The CIA and the NSA protect the state security so they can't be exposed. It's a tyranny of secrecy, Kevin Shipp says. Now, the Congress has legal authority to control the CIA through the budget, but the CIA can turn around and classify all their information and withhold it, saying, well, that's a matter of national security. We can't tell you what we have and what we need because it's classified. So the Congress doesn't get information on what they're doing, so they can't regulate a budget because they don't know what is going on. And it's political suicide to dig too deep into what the CIA is actually doing. But he did mention that Lockheed Martin makes big contributions to the Clinton Foundation. Congress is largely composed of statesmen who want to keep the status quo. Once they get in there and they start seeing the advantages for them personally, they don't really want to change anything that's going to alter that. Of course, again, greed. Now, lest you think I'm bashing Democrats or anybody, he points out shadow government has cross-party influence. Bill Clinton and Bush Sr. are guilty of being in power and approving running drugs, programs that allow torture, secret prisons. Obama prosecuted more whistleblowers than any other president and grossly expanded the reach of the NSA under his presidency. He approved a drone kill list for strikes against people that even just look suspicious in other countries. Running guns to Syria, supporting other armies that massacre entire villages of people on behalf of our government. Even selling arms and weapons that were made here to other countries because it's just profitable. So Shipp also says that Hillary took hundreds of thousands of dollars to run guns to Benghazi to intentionally overthrow Muammar Gaddafi when he was trying to make peace with us. He even offered to leave Libya of his own free will and go take shelter somewhere else and give us anything we wanted. But she was behind just plowing over that whole plan. Shipp also says Congress, not every single congressperson, but like enough of a majority, end up supporting deep state agendas, policies, covert ops, and approving NSA programs. We've lost our Congress long ago. And also, they can block information from getting to Congress, to us, because of covert operations, classifying and concealing programs such as running drugs to South America. Now, where do they get all this money to run this stuff? Well, I just mentioned, you may be asking, what's with all this drug running talk? Because it's huge money and it's illegal. It's the drug trade. The U.S. has a major part of all the illegal drug traffic that happens. They make money also by creating these black budgets and contracts to funnel money into. They say, oh, we need this amount of money to develop this thing, and that thing doesn't get all that money sent to it.
Did you get that thing?
Mm-hmm. They also raid financial institutions such as savings and loan. And what happened to the savings and loan? Mm-hmm. Remember that?
Yes. They
can seize our tax money, our property, our assets. They go and create government public authorities that are taxpayer subsidized, like housing, water, education, transportation. And, we have to fund that stuff. Government contracts that are for illegal arms trade, selling weapons and techs. So that's how they're funding this stuff. And like I said, the CIA and the NSA can spy and eavesdrop on Congress, conversations, emails, offices, tapping, and that's a felony. And they've even lied under oath, and he has evidence of that. But in all this, looking at all this, what bothers me the most is when he talks about our government going over there in the name of peace and freedom, and these people are a threat. They'll go over there and they'll bomb these places that have innocent people in foreign countries with no regards to their lives. What's stopping them from doing that to us? I don't think there's really anything until it's something they need. I'll just say 9/11. 10% of Syria was murdered due to our bombings. Susan Lindauer said that she had an insider friend that said in the morning of 9/11, after, the night, like the wee hours in the morning, after the cleaning staff left the World Trade Center, 3 suspicious unmarked vans came into the parking garage. And she also says that the buildings coming down was a controlled explosion using thermite explosives. And that's the insider info she has. So if 9/11 was an inside job, meaning it came from the shadow government, they just recklessly took lives for whatever agenda. Well, not whatever agenda. Look at it like this. They created panic and a worry about our national security so they could enact things like, oh, well, we're practically going to have you stripped naked and probe you at TSA and take your shoes off. And so they're tightening down the security so they get more control and they can get deeper into what we're doing, and then NSA has more I mean, I don't have to tell all of you this, do I really? So the CIA supports and finances the murder and tortures of thousands of people, including Chilean citizens down there in South America. So what's it going to take for them to come after us on a broader scale even? So they engage in secret torture programs that they call enhanced interrogation, where people have died, and it's beyond what we've ever heard. It's not just waterboarding. It's way worse than that. And they can do warrantless searches where they go to your workplace even, and they tell your supervisor, hand over all your stuff, And I mentioned they had a drone assassination program that has a kill list. And on this kill list is people who pretty much even just walk funny. If they think you have even slightly suspicious behavior, they create a behavior profile on you, and you go on this list. And if they're like, oh, well, they did something weird, let's just off them with this drone. So if a person kind of acts like a terrorist, they'll level an entire village to get you. A building, a wedding party, doesn't matter. So, let's see. I'm kind of getting kind of close, and it kind of bugs me that...
Or they can install a Trojan on your computer to make it look like you have some kind of
absolutely.
naughty pictures on your computer.
I didn't even get to that. I mean, if you really go too far, they can set up anything to make it look like you've done something wrong.
Mm-hmm. And that's another subject for another show that we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. And And then I was going to also bring up a lot of
Excuse
people
me.
believe that, when the towers came down in 9/11, that Building 7 was still standing. And that and you could see that in a news report where Building 7 was still standing. And then for no reason, it collapses. Mm-hmm. And so
It's like the building's like, oh crap, I'm still standing. I better fall down.
The thing
it'll
is,
look suspicious.
the thing is the targets for 9/11 that actually went up in smoke were, there were a lot of financial records in the towers, and so those buildings were taken out. So a lot of people were trying. They believe that the towers were destroyed because of money, and that's also the Pentagon because
that's all what it all goes back to.
I'm trying to think
Exactly.
of who the Secretary of Defense was at the time.
Rumsfeld?
Rumsfeld, that's it. I kept on saying Rummy, but that was the nickname they called him. But he had just announced that the Pentagon was coming up short several billions of dollars, and then all of a sudden this happened, and the records that pointed to that missing funds went up in smoke supposedly when the quote unquote airplane hit the Pentagon.
The war on terrorism was about lining pockets, because the more they can create like budgets to create all this, it's so elaborate what they go through just to make money and keep it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you were talking to me about how those trucks that had all that money, and then I don't know if it was something I had seen about how the buildings, the guy that owned the buildings. Basically said that he was claiming against the insurance that for each plane was an act of terrorism, not just one as a whole,
right.
And the money that he was trying to claim on that. That whole mess is just ridiculous when you start scratching on the surface. And then what I hate about it is if you question with boldness about the situation, people label you, oh, you're just a conspiracy
Your
nut.
tinfoil wearing hat weirdo.
Yeah, exactly. And questions have been asked, about legitimate questions, common sense questions.
We're not supposed to question anything?
No, I mean, I've always said that. Passing that information along to my nieces as they were growing up is always ask the question why. Don't take things for face value. And you said something about me the other day is that I'm aware, and you have to be aware. You can't just.
You're very close to almost like trying to be a superhero because, boy, you hate injustice to the point where you'll get yourself in trouble.
I just want people to do the right thing,
and they're not going to do it. And
I know, and
I just got to get you to relax. But anyway, I digress. I got a little section I can get into before our break.
Okay.
It's called the Continuity of Government Program, which I found out about more recently this week. So whenever we declare war in this country, we suspend the Constitution because of security. So when Bush Jr. signed this into law, Obama just continued it. He didn't ever say, okay, we're done with that. We can stop now. He didn't do it. Mm-hmm. So they can suspend our Constitution, our constitutional rights, that policy. So this program has not been reversed. There hasn't been a said, okay, the war on terrorism's over. Let's go back to the constitutional government. It hasn't happened because that doesn't benefit anyone who's in the shadow government. Mm-hmm. So the head of CIA got a medal for all his duplicitous work from the president, according to Kevin Shipp. George Tenet, when he got this medal, Shipp points out Tenet was a master of the torture program. He just not a stand-up guy. Mm-hmm. But the shadow government rewards the faithful when they toe the line like this. They'll give them medals, awards, recognition, money, Shipp says this is a tyranny of secrecy. That's how they get things done, through the secret. And it's directed at the American people. And they run outside the law, outside the Constitution, and they can do whatever they want, cover it up easily, and take you out through the NSA. 9/11 gave them even more power to keep things secret under the guise of Homeland Security. State's secret is law. And so that can shut down any scrutiny of the NSA. If you start to question them and say that is a state secret that will compromise the security of this country, if you dig into this, we can't tell you, so stop it. See, so not even Congress has access to info under the state secrets law. Again, he says, we lost our Constitution in 1948 when the CIA was created. So, that'll get us to the break.
Yes. Very fascinating stuff that we're being illuminated by tonight.
And I figure I got just a little bit more if you want to open the Skype line or...
Yeah, we could do that. So, later on...
Mm-hmm.
We'll open up the phone lines after this commercial break that we're going to take. It's not really a commercial break, but let's make it one. Hey, friends, families, folks, space cadets, there's nothing better to bug out to when you're jamming out, and that is Spaceboy Music. Go to spaceboymusic.com. You can find a lot of the music you hear here on the program, and the music that used to be played on Spaceboy Music on Friday nights, but at some point we'll get back to that. But yeah, go check it out. Music is pretty affordable. Most music is under $1 a song, and most albums are within $10. So you can't shake a stick at that and not be disappointed at. So head on over to spaceboymusic.com and pick you up some Spaceboy music. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that that particular song is actually inspired by the Chase, which is usually played as the opener for Coast to Coast AM. I'm a big fan of Giorgio Moroder, and
Giorgio Moroder.
well, potatoes. So anyway, I had to talk a little bit so that did you get those cheese things down?
Seriously?
Yes, we're moving on. So, yeah,
I'm going to pinch you so hard.
phone lines are open, so if you're going to want to chime in, what's the number they can dial, Sir Lana?
Crap. Hold on.
You didn't open the thing?
No, it's just Skype.
Okay. So we're using the Skype line?
Yeah, Skype.
So the Skype line number
you know
is
why we're not doing
713-701-5214. That's 713-701-5214. That's 713-701-SBUN?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Skype looked weird for a minute there, and I was trying to figure out what that was. Anyway. All right, there.
So we're good now.
Yeah.
So we can start talking about the media?
I want to talk about the media that's in bed since the inception of the Council on Foreign Relations.
So, yes, it's a pretty dramatic situation with the media, so I'm looking forward to this part.
Seriously.
Come on.
It gets into you, I swear to God. Anyway, objective reporting is a joke. This is another example of deep state control. So, again, I got to bring him up. Whatever your opinion is, whomever you voted for, I don't think you can deny Trump gaining the presidency has been an eye-opener. I laughed for a week solid. Anyway, during his campaign and even after, America seems to awaken to the fact that there is this concept of fake news. Glory, hallelujah. Media bias has been there all along, and I've always thought it was fairly blatant, but for some reason, the majority of people are just now seeing it. And the media seems to push this agenda, and it comes from the deep state because they're in bed with them. And it's not the most recent presidential election where this happened. If you go back to Barry Goldwater, he lost his chance at the presidency because the media labeled him as a racist and extremist, and he would plunge us into nuclear annihilation. And what's funny here, I have the word nuclear animalization, and I knew it was annihilation, but it's sitting there as animalization. Weird. So Trump got smeared as well, but he kind of brought it on himself for being a little crazy, but it didn't bother him. He just plowed ahead, just being crazy. So the media didn't win. He got in anyway. Mm-hmm. And, we live in this age where...
Say what you will about the election that happened recently, but watching Trump was quite interesting as an election went down this year, because you would think after certain things that were said by somebody as a candidate, it just didn't affect him one way when it came to the media. But what happened was he was able to villainize the media to a point where it worked in his favor. So each time that the media tried to double up on him, it just made them look that much worse.
Well, okay, given the climate we live in with the internet, where trolling is the way of comments and social media and forums and all this online stuff, he kind of fits in with this world we live in, where it's just people just verbal diarrhea.
Say what they want, and then
back away,
and then regardless of the consequences, and then feel the pain later, kind of thing.
Yeah. So we live with that behavior. It's kind of normal. Even his behavior seems kind of normal when you put it in the context of how people behave online. But so, and it got to take into effect, we no longer live in this world. We only have 3 media outlets in this country. We have, it's way out of mainstream media's control. We can post anything we want, anywhere we want. That's kind of to our advantage, but it also is any idiot can get on the internet. And we have things like WikiLeaks. that are a true threat to the deep state. And then another thing that worked in his favor is Trump is media savvy. He knows how to do all this stuff. He knows how to, be on TV and all that stuff. And he handled the attacks and smears in an effective way. Are they the best way? Or are they a good way? I don't know. It just worked.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a personal observation. Excuse me. We're getting a phone call, but we said you could. All right. Are you there, caller?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Let's talk about some of the shadow government crap.
But before you go on, we need you to turn down your radio in the background.
And identify yourself, or unless you want to use an alias, that's okay.
Okay, the radio is actually your show.
Mm-hmm.
You need to turn that down.
And it's turned down.
All right.
How about that?
Good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is this Uncle Joe?
Well, you were calling him drunk Uncle Joe earlier.
Is this Drunkle Joe?
Actually, been sober for going on 12 years, but I could be drunk, Uncle. Yeah, let me. Hey, Auntie, will you give me a beer? Sure. No, not drunk, but I could be. Just a matter of beer or two. That's pretty easy. Be a drunk and a beer or two.
So what's on your mind, Uncle Joe?
Well, I was just, there's so much information out there.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Especially during the Nixon, during the Watergate, which was spiked and started almost a revolution in itself, just because he was just about to expose the UFOs. But not only that, but the what am I trying to think of here? The world government thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was completely against that, and he was telling the American people to get rid of to vote to get rid of the world order thing and the well, it just went blank.
Yeah, we're listening. Did you mute us?
Well, help me out here. The world order, the one world government.
Yeah.
His alien connection, which he was very informed about the aliens.
You're saying Nixon or Kennedy?
Nixon.
Or both?
Nixon.
Okay.
Well, Kennedy was killed because of that.
That's what I hear, yes.
He was about to expose the aliens, and it had nothing to do with Marilyn Monroe. She was, she was
a floozy.
A pawn. A pawn. That's what I was trying to do. Yeah, she was one of those, but she was a pawn in the big scheme of things. So.
Well, it's interesting you bring this up, Uncle Joe. Is that basically there was a report of Nixon taking Jackie Gleason to, I guess it was Wright-Patterson.
Could be, yeah.
And he said, "Hey, do you want to see something interesting?" And he showed Jackie Gleason aliens, and I think that Jackie Gleason said something to this in an interview that this had happened.
Absolutely, Nixon's connection to Hollywood, which is very Jewish, and the Jewish are highly. The Germans killed them. They put them in ovens, but and now they're in control of most of our media. So I think there's some animosities there, and it's not only fueled a secret government, but it is controlled by the secret government. And money, where's the money coming from? Look at Hollywood. They make billions of dollars on a movie, on one movie. They produce, it's a simple economics thing. You can't imagine how much money they really make. Another aspect of the secret government funding, every single house in America is taxed, property tax. Number one property tax. Every single house in America. We're talking more than $28 trillion in Houston alone. Now that's a bunch of money, isn't it? Just imagine that nationwide, and Congress has robbed our Social Security. Come on, you know they can put the money right back in there. It's a matter of a stroke of the pen. Don't get me started. It is so wrong. You know why they're afraid of Trump is because he's got the money to.
He doesn't need the money.
He doesn't need the money, and he's got money to fight him.
Right. He didn't even need the money that you normally pay a president. It's like, I don't need this.
Exactly.
He can't be controlled through money in a lobby. That's probably why they're trying to figure out, probably scrambling to find another way to control him or just get rid of him. So, hope that doesn't happen.
Well, the previous three presidents have been the most corrupt in history. The most corrupt. The two prior to those even had a handful in the total deception, which is lie to American people until they get what they want, so they can get what they want.
Yes.
And your thoughts on that?
It's nothing I didn't already read in my research this week. They, somebody in the chat said they borrowed money from Social Security, never paid it back. Well, Kevin Shipp, CIA whistleblower, says they stole it blatantly with no intention of ever paying it back, because I think it's another way, one, for them to profit, two, if we don't have anything to live off of, we have to be dependent on them to give us something, and that's exactly where they want us.
We have to be subservient, yes.
We have to need them for everything, or else we can't be controlled.
We need to pay to put our elderly parents in a government facility. We need to pay the government more and more.
Indeed, well, like I said, I've been saying this all night long. These alphabet soups operate outside the Constitution. That's where they like it. They don't care that it's wrong, because as long as somebody's getting their gold-plated hyenas or whatever it is they need to feel fulfilled in life, we're not going to stand a chance.
I need a gold-plated hyena.
Well, I was trying to think of the most ridiculous thing I think of. That's what came to me.
I could think about a gold-plated something else, but,
alrighty. Yeah.
I was just thinking here momentarily that, Nixon, actually, a lot of people, the youngsters out there don't realize that he actually was Dwight D. Eisenhower's vice president. And the connection there, I bring that up, is because, when we were talking earlier about how Eisenhower warned us about the industrial military complex. So
exactly.
Nixon had a lot of knowledge of, going back to that time period. And so it doesn't surprise me, and then plus, Nixon served in Congress from 47 to 53. So, I mean, he's definitely been in Washington during, from his career. He's touched base on so many different things. So I would not be surprised that Nixon knew a lot more than people let on to knowing that he knew.
But were they about to set him up? So he said, well, I better step down so they don't try to pull something.
Well, with the Watergate situation.
Watergate was. It was a setup.
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't know about it because I was born right during that, so I'd have to go back and research that.
So yeah,
it's a really good subject to research. I would highly recommend it.
Maybe I'll do a segment coming up, what I learned about Watergate.
That would be really interesting, because Watergate is interpreted one by the media, one by the attorneys and the court systems, and then lastly, it's interpreted by the public. So we have three interpretations of Watergate, and I think personally myself, I believe that there's way more stuff in that we don't have access to, way more information that we don't have access to. We were only told as peons what we can and can't be told. So we need to. That'd be a great show. Let's research on that and get some feedback on that. Absolutely.
Well, Joe said I had to do it, so I was worried there was too many bummer topics in a row because we've been talking about the hurricane and all this stuff, and I forget what we talked about. It wasn't like uplifting stuff, so I was trying to figure out, is there anything uplifting to talk about, but how would it be interesting? So I don't know.
No, we don't want to talk about this previous couple of weeks because I have some pretty hard feelings about what I saw. Just some scams about, never mind.
Oh, well,
anyway.
Somebody mentioned in the chat that Hillary was fired from the prosecuting counsel because she was cheating. Well, my next thing I was going to talk about, so, the whole thing about them when Trump was running, like, Russia had a hand in the election and they got in there to the computers and hacked. To me, it sounded a lot like sour grapes on the Clintons, Hillary's part, but she did have a role in the sale of uranium ore mines in Wyoming, which delivers some of its reserve to Russia, so she didn't have a problem from profiting off of them. Then there's the role she helped Putin in building Skolkovo, Russia's version of Silicon Valley, and that was a huge national security issue that the pro-Clinton, pro-Obama mainstream media put out there. They never seemed to cover that or find out about it. They were not even mildly curious about it.
Russia is laughing all the way to the bank. They did a double cross on the Clintons and Obamas, and they're laughing to this day all the way to the bank. They did a double cross. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. Clearly, you could see that she's done wrong, and yet she escaped. And the only way I can think of is, it just amazes me somebody could be like Teflon Don in a way, and just get away with so many different things and not be prosecuted or thrown in jail. And obviously, there has to be some kind of higher power at play here to keep these people in motion, whether it be her or whether it be, any of the past several presidents, vice presidents, and the players that have been involved in the White House.
Well, I say the CIA, does this extra-legal political machinations, propaganda, psychological manipulation for decades, but they've not been so open and audacious about it to engage in the politics to the point they interfere, but it signals that their true masters are confident that they're not going to be caught, or they're just that desperate to keep control. So the mainstream media is just another branch of these alphabet soups organizations because they're in on these councils. Then they keep the speculation about what the CFR is doing quiet, and that's at the root of the deep state.
Well, when you can't find information on these people on the dark web even, that's pretty secretive. They've got their own secret they've got their own communication system there, and it's way above and beyond what you or I, the normal Blow Joe, could even imagine having.
Well, speaking of normal Joe Blow, not meaning you, Joe, but I don't know what you and Eva saw outside of Houston while you were out with Harvey, but it's not just the mainstream media. Sometimes you get regular citizens who maybe they don't mean any harm, but they're grossly misinformed and they're not helping things like, okay, and I can point as soon as Harvey hit and we started taking the damage and people started getting flood water and getting displaced.
Right.
The video started, for instance. So here come
now, where did the video start?
Here come the FEMA conspiracies. These are just regular people with cell phones making videos.
Right.
So I'm not saying what they're saying is not plausible, but I'm not seeing the irrefutable evidence. Because now, if you've got people being detained in these empty Walmarts that are converted to FEMA prison camps or shelters, and I'm doing my air quotes in the air and you can't see it, but somebody has got to be bound to leak that. There's absolutely no way they could put that on such lockdown. So, and what I'm talking about is I'm citing this one video I saw, this guy, just some regular average dude who rolls up on this empty Walmart because they are closing them mysteriously around the country. So he said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't believe it and I didn't want to believe it, but here it is. I'm seeing it with my own eyes." Now, he was focusing on this chain link fence. He was like pretty tight on it. And it was so freaking obvious. This was just the empty garden center. All gardens, all Walmarts that have a garden center always have the chain link because that's just part of their building, part of their security to keep their product in, not to keep you in. And he didn't ever zoom out. He never moved. He didn't walk around and like, well, that right there is suspicious. Either he's stupid or this is clickbait to get views.
I think a whole bunch of bull.
So,
personally, myself.
So people are not regular people kind of muddy the waters too with inaccurate theories. So that's why you need to question. You need to really watch and pay attention, rewatch, question, reread things.
Sure.
Now, what go ahead.
When we got 32 inches of rain, that's when we evacuated. Because every time it rains around here, our internet goes down or the power goes out. Thank you, all these utility companies that also steal our money. But so we evacuated, and there was no problems until we wanted to come back, and we paid $3.78 for a gallon of gas in a town 200 miles away from here. These people were that was totally uncalled for. They had a gas run in the state of Texas. They produced this fuel 2 months ago. It doesn't even hit the markets for 2 months. So the reason they had a gas run on it is because
out of fear.
No, it wasn't out of fear.
Well, it was out of fear there wouldn't be any more because of our damage down here to refineries.
That's a scare tactic. There's a refinery in every state, and every state has 1 or 2 refineries. Houston, Texas has 9 refineries. So that's another big lie the media is trying to put out there that, oh my God, we're not going to have gas because all the refineries are in Texas. No, that's a lie. There's
but I'm saying the average person doesn't know that, Joe, so they're just acting on
fear,
their own fears.
Fear,
like, well, I better get all the gas now before it disappears, and they just don't have the facts.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly right, because they're misinformed by whom?
The news, the media.
The media, the news. So I was going to say when they started doing videos and filming, when the news crews got there, where were they at? They went down to Memorial. Where's Memorial? It's crossed I-10 in the richest part of town. They didn't come up here on the north side, on the other side of I-10, and
where we live.
Where we live, where people are standing on our roof waving flags and the National Guard's going by them. The Red Cross is waving out the truck windows. Oh, it was just stupid. And if it weren't for some good-natured Americans that just happened to live in Louisiana, and they had about 500 people organized, these people from Louisiana brought their own boats, spent their own gas. They didn't take orders from the National Guard or anybody.
Cajun Army.
It was. That's right. The Cajun Navy.
Cajun Navy, yes.
Cajun Navy.
They came in and they were kicking ass. They were kicking butt. Rescuing these people, it was just awesome, And but the National Guard is trying to block them, and they're saying, "Get out of my way, dude." it was kind of hilarious to see. But Red Cross comes in here just long enough to get their donations, and they're out. They were in here 2 days. Mm-hmm. And now if it wasn't for the goodness of these churches and people with true hearts that are volunteering, they're still.
And selected churches.
And selective churches. We heard about. Well, we heard about that Olsen. That guy incident.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mattress Mac opens his showroom and costs him $30,000 a day.
He didn't care.
He didn't care, but yet somebody who's out there preaching the gospel for 20 minutes and makes $20 billion a year. Imagine that.
Well, I don't know that he's preaching the gospel I was raised with, being old school Southern Baptist raised, but somebody that's in that congregation said somewhere on social media that Osteen says something to the effect that personal prosperity is a sign of God's love and approval of what you're doing with your life. So that's not what I was told. You want to go believe that? That's fine.
Here's and I'm going to and here's what gets my goat on this subject is that and I've brought this up before as and hold on, let me just do this for Michelle. As the fact is that as a member of the community, a big prominent member of the community, he was not out there saying, "Hey, look, this is what's coming down. Don't come to this Lakewood church. There's going to be some issues." Before all this, you should go here, kind of directing people, guiding them to where they need to get for the best help as a pillar of the community. That was my big beef in that situation. Regardless if there was a little water in there or whatever, he was very absent through this whole thing. But here you have Mattress Mac, who is a prominent member of our community. He just like, hey, come on down here. We're going to take you in, or hey, let's start collecting stuff, and hey, I'm going to send some of my trucks out to pick some of the people out that are in need to get, just to get out of the water. He did not, and when I say he, Joel Osteen did not show that initiative as compared to Mattress Mac. And that is my beef, and that's what gets my goat about that whole situation.
Oh, I agree 100%. I know I have friends that are realtors that are giving up their commission to find some of these people displaced rental apartments. They're giving up their commission to help these people. I mean, realtors don't really make much at all in the first place to find these places for rentals, and they're giving up their commission, and it's really difficult to find places that are accepting the FEMA tickets, the FEMA vouchers or whatever you call them, and yet I know lots of these realtors that are doing this for the community as well. We could not get help unless we went to those Eagles, the rec center, or wherever their shelters were. They are just terrible. There's no law and order. Had one of my neighbors just the other day that got back from one of those. He looked like he went through war. He said there's no place to take a bath. You go to the bathroom in these places. There's people are robbing each other and just lots of crimes that are happening that are, even though that they're being guarded and the National Guard is there and the police department's there, they're turning their eyes to what's really going on, and it's really sad. Plus they're busting these people to we don't know where. I haven't heard from a couple of my neighbors since they went down there. They all had cell phones, and they were keeping in touch with me until they went to the shelter, and now nobody knows where any of them are. I mean, that's just in my neighborhood. People that, they had to get out because their house was flooding. And they physically came in here with trucks and brought them out. I mean, a lot of the holdouts were in here that, we're not going out. Well, they came in and took them out, and then they took them someplace, and we don't know where they are.
Yeah, that's some of the stuff I started hearing as soon as the hurricane hit here is that, that they take people away and you never hear from them again, and they use them for experimentations and all the things that they're going to do terrorists and maybe even Oregon.
Right. Well, that's where the supposed conspiracy theory of these FEMA camps. Well, I truly believe in the FEMA camps are real, and I wasn't about to get out and get in, take orders from those people especially. These people are just taking orders from higher ups, and it's pretty misconstrued where they're getting orders, because it wasn't the governor.
Yeah. So how do we put a stop to all this when these powers that be are really good at keeping us distracted, divided, misinformed, or placated through the mainstream media and their, because it seems like we're either really gullible or we're so preoccupied with our own daily lives and work, and we're too busy to notice anything, or we're too upset with each other or fighting about race, or too apathetic to care. It's difficult to get a wide majority of people to rise up and say, we've had enough of your crap. But
well, they keep us so dumbed down that the fluoride in the water, for example. Did you know that your drinking water here in Houston has 40 parts per million of chloride and fluoride in the water? Fluoride is a known drug that makes you stupid. It's known to do that.
Well, we don't drink anything that comes out of a tap. It's just nasty.
Even our bottled water, all of these have chemicals in them that they don't post them. They're not required to post what they slip into water or drinking supply. And part of bottled water, in fact, I like a particular brand, and found out the other day that they have additives such as minerals that actually cause cancer. So why would I drink water that does that? You never know until you research this stuff.
So what do we drink?
We have to drink water, but what we need to do is get our own filtration systems in place. But you asked the question, what do I think we could do to keep informed? And it's really difficult in these times to keep informed. I think the best way to keep informed is to continue to communicate with each other. We're so hyped on communicating with the phone and not actually talking to people. We need to talk to each other. We need to be in each other's company. We really need to be informed by each other. I mean, I did not know what was going on in my neighborhood unless I was actually talking to some of my neighbors. And I mean, they would send me emails and show me pictures, and those weren't the pictures they sent me. It was unbelievable. This was partially Google, of course. Google is evil media number one. They have like Google Earth and Google Chrome and all this stuff. These are infections. These are controlled by the masses. I mean, the masses don't control them, but Google controls the masses that way by false information. We need the truth, and we need to help each other find out the truth.
Exactly.
And part of that is, hey, if you're in South Padre and there's high tide or there's low tide at noon, something's wrong. Hey, there might be a hurricane in the Gulf,
or tsunami.
I think building a network like Spaceboy Universe is awesome because it does keep us. It does keep us informed. It keeps us. We can talk to each other. We can talk to people that it helps us be in the know. And I think that's one of the best ways we can combat this is to be in the know. The next solution is, and I hate to say it, but it's going to be a revolution.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'll be one of the first people that gets taken out.
Well, we that are more prepared may live a few minutes longer, but when they push the button, we're all gone.
Well, they need to have a certain number around to act as worker bee drones to do the things they need to run the power companies so they can get, somebody to fix their cars and maintenance their golden hyenas. So they're just however much they need us to do for them, they'll keep that amount of people around.
Oh, absolutely. Like the power grid is over 300. Well, they say it's only aged 180 years old. However, it's aged 300 years, and that's 180 years because we've overloaded the system so bad, and they can't keep up. They just can't keep it up, but they can sure keep up giving money to some foreign country, billions of dollars to some foreign country to give them, guns and ammo and bombs to blow each other up.
That's what I'm saying. They keep us in poverty while they're making money to these people that just absolutely hate us because we're probably going over there bombing them one day, selling them stuff the next day. It's just not... they're not here for us. They're in the government. They're deep in there, and they only want what they want. And it has nothing to do with our needs or what's best for us. They're all... As long as they can profit off us, that's all we're good for.
Well, like I said, like you said earlier, it's not about what we are. All we are to them is a paycheck. That's what we are to the to the shadow governments, to the people. Well, to the Clintons, we're just a paycheck to them.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm talking about gold-plated hyenas in chat. She said, I have no use for a gold-plated hyena. I said, yeah, but if you don't have one, they're going to put you on a list, and then you'll be sorry.
No, they'll just take your gold hyena and shoot it, and then shoot you. They'll take your gold hyena and put it with their gold hyena, and then they'll have two gold hyenas.
One for each cheek.
Oh.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, it's been good to hear from you, Uncle Joe, and I guess we'll see you tomorrow after we have our arm wrestling match to see what restaurant we're going to.
Okay, that sounds great.
Or y'all could just pick it so we don't have to have strife.
Barbecue.
Okay. We can do that. All right, well, I guess we'll text you what time are we going to do lunch? Is it going to be brunch or lunch?
Probably lunch.
Lunch. So we have to get up early and fight the hordes at HEB.
I hear you. So I'll text you when we're on our way.
All righty.
Okay.
Great talking to you. Great show. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Uncle Joe.
Thanks for chiming in.
All right, bye.
Bye. Another great Uncle Joe moment here on the SBU.
I love it when family calls in, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Let's take a little music break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up a few things. And, you're listening to Spaceboy and Solana on the SBU. That is Future Light, inspired by Sir Lana. She wanted me to do a song using the title Future Light, and that's what came to mind, so I like it. It's very nice and melodic. Anyway, so you're listening to the SBU Network. I'm Space Boy.
I'm Sir Lana.
Yes.
We're kind of wrapping up the topic. I was going to say that something I didn't cover, because this is a massive topic. We could do a show on this, every single month. Is HAARP, 2 A's, HAARP, HARP. There is an idea that there are HARP centers across the globe where they manipulate weather to create situations and natural disasters to benefit whoever the shadow government is. And there's some talk about how Harvey and Irma and Jose, and there's the two others I can't remember the name of that just already happened, is part of that. And it just feels like a bad time right now. You've got half the Gulf Coast is underwater, another half's about to get blown off the face of the earth, and then northwest is on fire. So that only leaves the middle of the country and the northeast. So something's got to happen there.
Snow.
And then they've got earthquakes, tsunamis down there in Mexico.
Oh yeah, that major earthquake it was like an 8.0, something like that.
Yeah, so I didn't get into that.
Felt it all the way into Austin.
Right, and exactly. There's just not time. Now, I could look at these retroactively, like, in the coming weeks or something, if I could find some kind of grand conclusion to make out of it, but I don't know anything about it other than I could go research it, but again, it would all just be speculation like all this is. But I just really feel like this deep state shadow government is very real. It's not going away. I don't know how we can stop it, because here's the bottom line. If it's all about making money and greed, and the love of money is the root of all evil, you're talking about basic human nature. So how do we stop greed? Well, I guess you would have to raise your future generations to not focus on that and not be focused on money and materialistics, but I don't know how effective that's going to be. Not everybody would do that. We just live in a society that everything's based out of monetary gain, monetary reward. So it would have to be a major shift in thinking, a major shift in moral ethics. Basically, you would need to go in there and reprogram humanity, maybe at the DNA level. And should we be doing that? I don't know. They found out in the Star Trek universe that's a bad thing, but then that's fiction. So I don't know what the solution is. We see a wrong, but not how to right it. But maybe the only thing you do is take care of yourself and lead by example.
Sad thing is that one might think that this could be the fall of the United States.
Well, they liken it to the fall of Rome.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And then look what happened to Greece more recently. Mm-hmm. They went into terrible crisis financially. Yeah, I mean, you and I have these fantasy conversations. Hey, if we win the lottery, we're going to X, Y, Z. And I keep thinking, well, it's not because we love money. It's because we don't want to be a slave to debt anymore. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't go out and spend and buy anything. We would pay off things left and right and then just pay cash for everything and leave no trail of credit. So, but yeah, don't want to get off on that topic. But it just seems like a weird time. It just seems like there's a lot of natural disasters happening at one time. Oh, also,
I was just reminded by Bev, I did see something about a major solar flare.
I kept asking you, have you texted David Adair to see how he's doing and what his thoughts are on the solar flare?
I have not, and I really do need to do that. I'll do that tomorrow.
You should do it. You should do it.
I didn't want to do it. Each time it comes up, It's been like, okay, it's 11 o'clock at night, or
I don't think he cares. We should tell Joe about David Adair tomorrow if he doesn't know.
I promise I will commit to reaching out to him and seeing how he's doing.
Our excuse is hurricane. So, but yeah, we're all having hard times. We're having some hard times too. Finances, it's bad for everybody. Again, you got these powers that be that create the inflation, create your need to pay for things. So you go into debt, and the only way you can get out of it is to get more money, and they give you more money. It's just
it
this
comes down to
circle.
Just different ways of enslavement to keep you trapped in a machine, and it's so apparent that I can see it. I'm aware of what's going on.
And I did not care about any of this prior to meeting you, prior to moving to Texas, because I didn't make money. I didn't own property. I didn't have anything to myself. Now that I have a job and I pay taxes and I'm a homeowner and I'm a car buyer,
so
now I care.
So what you say, you wrote me into this.
Yeah, you kind of did. I was just going to date you once and then drop you, honestly.
So what the second date was? You.
I had nothing better to do. I wanted some Starbucks tea.
Hey, I've got nothing better to do. You want to get married?
That was your idea.
Yeah. You should have known at the first date the Chinese thing.
You're involved in the Chinese conspiracy?
Yeah, the Chinese conspiracy.
Okay.
That's another story on...
Well, we told that story last year in October during our anniversary. I think we did a show on our anniversary or no, it was Halloween night. That's what it was. It was Halloween night. That was a good show. I'm of the opinion that the 2015, 2016 shows might be actually better because they're not as well produced.
What you're saying is it's all getting...
They're more entertaining.
Going downhill from here. I mean, from there. I mean, so these are the worst shows that we've done?
Well, I don't know. It just seems like we used to be more amusing. And I don't know if it's just because life has beat us down.
Look, I think we're still amusing. It just, we have moments where we're just... And that's... Okay, let me start with this. People tune in to us because we're real. We're not fake. We don't...
I don't know how to be fake.
We're just who we are. I mean, I try to be funny. Sometimes I am. Sometimes I'm not. You like to shed light on that, and that's what makes great comedy. It all goes back to the days when your dad lived with us, and he would ride with us to go to different places.
Still did.
And he would laugh in the back seat at our conversations that we would have. And I knew then that would make for great conversations on air like this. And so, it's ups and downs. We'll go back for an upswing, but people enjoy hearing our take on different things. And
apparently, something's going on in chat with Bob and Beb. He's about to get cruising for a bruising. Oh, I know the feeling, Bev.
And so, in the end, I think that people are going to tune in, one, for the simple fact that we're genuine. We are who we are.
Well, could you spread the word, too?
Yeah.
Have some other people tune in as well. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
That would help us a lot.
Beyond Dino, when he does show up.
Bless his heart.
No, we love Dino. And, but yeah, we love the audience we're getting. And, it's, and that's, I'm glad you brought that up. I encourage the Space Cadets to let people know that, hey, there's a show where they can come to and hang out and have a good time and listen to two wacky people get at it with each other on various subject matters, and it's a great place to come and hang out. And maybe one day, if the show ever becomes profitable, could you imagine we could do the show 5 days a week?
If we could do the show full-time as our job, make money with it, the show could be so much better because we'd have time to devote to research and hunting down people to have guests and interviews and doing more local stuff and,
I mean, we clearly
fantasy.
There's a vision there, and we'd love to do so much more, but it always comes down to the day job and enslavement.
Got to pay the bills
to
these corporate overlords.
Yes, so maybe one day. It's all good. So anything that you want to add to the
I should, but I'm at this point where I don't know any more than you do.
You,
or stuff you
tell
do.
you, I am working on a possible guest for the show, and he seems interested. It'll be a paranormal kind of show, and
Sorry, there's a giant insect in the foyer.
and so I will have to, I'll reach out to him tomorrow and see if he would like to come on next week.
Okay,
and,
cool. You'll have a discussion with me, so I'll know who it is, right?
Yeah.
'Cause I still don't know.
In fact, he's a friend of Solaris too, and maybe we can get him on this next Saturday if possible. If not, he'll be on the show pretty soon. But it'll be a paranormal thing, and it's something we haven't done in a while, and I'd love to to talk to him, and he's very interesting.
People are saying some nice things about our show in chat, so I would like to remind you to remember that. Call in on our anniversary show and say that to us on the phone line so we can record it.
Yeah, and use it in bumpers and
blackmail.
And blackmail, yes, all good stuff. So, yeah. So, can I guess, do some final thoughts?
Sure, I'm done. Yeah.
I'd like to, as final thoughts,
some crackers.
changing it up a little bit for Spaceboy Universe, give some final thoughts. It actually comes from a song from Weird Al, and I'll read you the lyrics. And it goes, I've cracked the code. I've figured out the shadow organizations and the Illuminati know that we're finally primed for world domination. And soon you will have black helicopters coming across the border. Puppet masters for the new order. Be aware. There's something that someone is always watching you. And still, the government won't admit that they faked the moon landing through thought control rays and psychotronic scanning. Of course, I don't mind, because I'm protected with my hat I just made from aluminum foil. I wear it because the hat is lined in hold on, let me say this again.
You're not reading the real lyrics, are you?
Wear a hat that's foiled lined just in case an alien's inclined to probe your butt and read your mind. It looks peculiar, I know. Seems a little crazy, but someday I'll prove that there's a big conspiracy. And on that magical note, on behalf of Sir Lana and myself, we thank you for being a part of our universe. Good night.
Spaceboy Universe is hosted by Spaceboy and Sir Lana. Executive producer is Sir Lana. Social media producer is Dennis Koch. Associate producer is Lee Ann Cordes. Music production is Spaceboy of SpaceboyMusic.com. Special thanks goes out to Lee Ann K, K28, Mark S, and Bob N. This has been a Spaceboy Universe production. Support the universe by exploring Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and Sir Lana. Sweet dreams, Space Cadets.